No, 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 no. These kombuchas, if you just leave them out for a few minutes, they get warm, and then they want to fizz up on you. I'm just gonna set that down for a second. Anyways, this is my review of nights 3 and 4 of the Democratic National Convention. I'm going to do this live so that people can talk at me in the chat while I'm speaking. No fancy things, no screen grabs or anything in this. Is just me talking. I'm just burning up an hour before I'm going to go on a little road trip to see some family right before the school year starts, because as soon as it does, there's a bunch of people that got to be persona non grata to me, a germaphobe. So it's my last chance to see them before they're too risky. So here I am taking this pandemic seriously. Got this kombucha open. It's not one of those point five kombucha, so I could still be an addiction counselor, not be a hypocrite for drinking this, because it's so low ABV. So shut up. So yeah, night 3. I didn't take very good notes during night 3. I was a little distracted, but I did watch the whole thing. I'll say that you're not getting my immediate reaction because I've seen night 4 now before reviewing night 3. So it's kind of unfair, but I'm not judging it on its own merits anymore. It's kind of like UFC judging. You watch an hour of UFC and you notice that, like, sometimes in 5 rounds you think, well, it was obviously this guy at the end should have won, right? But then you look back at the rounds and the other guy, just eked out a win each of those 4 rounds, and that got decimated in the 5th. He's still going to lose. The guy who was winning in the end, the one who you're like, oh my god, he bloodied his nose so bad. Same thing with watching these conventions. If you're not judging each speech on its own for its own merits, and you're comparing it to the whole, I think you're not doing each person justice. But I'll say, on night 3, it was Barack Obama's speech that I think was probably archivable, in that it was one for the ages. I'm not saying it's an "I have a dream" speech, but it was definitely a how to be a president speech, how to be a leader speech, and him and Bill Clinton both had pretty good zingers for Donald Trump in it. So I'm not really telling you my immediate reaction. I'm just saying, if you watched nothing else from night 3, watch President Obama's speech. That was pretty much the highlight. Now, night 4, however, I did take pretty good notes about how I was feeling in the moment. Mind you, I'm watching the chat right now. No one's spoken yet, so I'm not going to react to anyone yet. But as far as what I remember of night 4, started with Tom Perez, and he brought up the topic of conquering cancer, right? And then it was like a montage about the cancer moonshot. Like, we went to the moon, why can't we cure cancer? and how Joe Biden was uh, working with cancer research as the vice president because, his son Bo died of cancer, and so he then made it his mission to, you know, fund cancer research and get regulations out of the way and whatnot. So, what it reminds me of now, I'm still a liberal, still on the left, still a Democratic delegate. I'm just saying, it reminds me of never ending war. It's like when George Bush, when he declared the war on terrorism, terrorism's never going away, right? It's always going to be there. So you could have a never-ending war where the uh, the machine of war, the corporate machine behind it, can just be, always getting fed because there's always something going on. Well, fighting cancer, is much the same, except for you get the political benefit of it. You could always rail against it. Cancer, it's evil. Everybody agrees that it's evil, right? But then uh, you don't have the drawback of it leaving a bad taste in your mouth because it's war. So the never ending war against cancer. If he just declares war against cancer, then I'm not as upset with that as I am the war on terror or the war on drugs. But yeah, it does remind me of, like, well, how do you know that you've won the war? How do you know that you've achieved what you set out to do? Do we just keep on throwing everything at it? If we don't see results, do we keep going? Like, what does this look like if you're going to be fighting cancer? Um, hmm. I'm all for funding cancer research, but hopefully it doesn't get to the point where we're, you know, having the government fund, I don't know, let's just say research into whether or not cannabis smoking cures cancer with apoptosis signals, like I've heard some activists say. Let's just stick to the stuff that might look a little bit promising. Um, anyways, uh, I also noted that, like, this is like the fourth night. By the fourth night, every night you hear about another person who has gotten Joe Biden's phone number, right? I don't have Joe Biden's phone number. Never met the guy, right? But I'm wondering, is this a secret phone number that you're sworn to secrecy if you get it? Like, only people who've been given it personally from Joe Biden. So, like, how rare is this phone number? Because by this time, he's kind of like the most connected person in the world as far as his personal phone number. They keep on all of these testimonies about him. They say, oh, and he gave the personal phone. Well, you know, at a certain point, it's going to be ringing off the hook, and later on in the show, his grandkids are like, oh, well, he calls every day. Like, how many conversations does this guy have? I'm pretty connected. I've met a whole bunch of YouTubers that you guys probably watch in person. They have my phone number. I do not have this many conversations. I get paid to talk for a living and listen to people for a living. You know, and still, I'm like, damn, he's got a lot of people who have his phone number. Just saying. Um, these are my feelings as I'm watching it. Like, holy shit, you've said this 4 nights in a row. He gave his personal phone number. He was personally connected to them. He talked to the grandma. Okay. So then there was Governor Newsom from California. He was talking about climate change and the fires, and how President Trump was going to defund something about putting out those fires, which seems kind of evil. That's like Doctor Evil, evil. You know, they're trying to put forest fires out. He's like, oh well, you're not spending the money right, so we're gonna yank it right in the middle of their disaster. He really hates California, you know, and when he loses California, it'll be no big surprise, you know. Then they had like a montage about different issues, right? It was all over the place as far as what the issues were, but the joining theme in it was this time next year. So like this time next year, you wouldn't have Trump as president if Biden wins. So they're like dreaming about like what's going to be different. Well, that was the only thing that was connecting all the thoughts, but it was basically the Democratic platform, and then this time next year for each point. Um, then they had Andrew Yang speaking, which was good. Then they had Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who was doing comedy, and she was the host, like Eva Longoria was for night one. And so I thought it was good to have a comedian, like roast style comedian, and I think they should have that probably all 4 nights, 4 years from now, because I actually enjoyed her zingers. Um, then they had the Chicks, which used to be the Dixie Chicks, but that just conjured up for me the documentary about the Dixie Chicks, where uh, you know one of them says something about the president, and then their whole career is derailed because they were country music stars, and you don't go against a Republican president on country music stations, so they basically got blacklisted in the industry after being like the biggest band in country music. And so recently they changed their name to just the Chicks, um, which I guess their fans had already been calling them. But yeah, it's funny how they dropped the whole racism thing by changing the Dixie part of their name, but they kept the Chicks part, which is kind of you know I hope it's empowering to them. Just saying. Anyways, then there was Sister Simone Campbell from Nuns on a Bus. I've met her, so that was nice. When you're only like 1 degree of separation from what you're watching. Uh, that was from my time uh, in the Free Thinkers of Colorado Springs. We went to a bunch of different activism, even when it's got a little bit of a religious overtone. If it could intersect with what we felt were prescient issues, and so yeah, they're all about tossing blood on uh, expensive fighter jets, and stuff like that kind of activism. And living in Colorado Springs, there's the Air Force Academy, so uh, they made a few visits. So I was nice to see her. That was my feeling with that. Then there was Senator Coons from Delaware, and the only reason why he's had so many spots uh, in the convention, so many different times to speak, is because he's got the seat that Joe Biden had when he was senator of Delaware. Coons replaced him, um, but he's not really a energetic speaker. Kind of a mousy man, um, but you know, good diction at least. I could understand what he was saying, and I could see him fighting for me in a legal issue. But um, I've got viewers right now, and nobody's chatting at all. I did this thing live to burn up an hour before I head down to the Springs, and nobody, crickets. Maybe it's just that it's 3:30 on a Friday. Um, So then Julia Louis-Dreyfus comes back as the host. In the segue to the next speaker, she gave a zinger that was so good that I was crying from laughter and had to stop it and then play it for Misty because it was so fucking funny. She said Joe Biden attends church so regularly that he doesn't even need tear gas and federalized agents to get him there. And I was just like, ah, man, that was comedy. That it took like a really sore spot and flipped it on its head. And I don't know if she had writers or if she was just doing her own comedy, but goddamn, that line was good. That to me, like if you're saying the memorable moment of each night, the night before was Barack Obama's speech, and this night is yeah, that was her one line right there. I mean, just floored me. Um, then there was the mayor of Atlanta, um, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and she talked about John Lewis, and then there was a tribute to John Lewis, and I don't know that he would have had as big of a spot in the convention as far as him being mentioned if it weren't for the fact that he passed away so close to it. If he passed away 2 years ago, would they still be remembering him in this way? I don't know. I think it's just like, you know, if you're gonna die and you're in the Democratic Party, die like right before the convention so that they can have you fresh in their memory and decide to do a montage of your life. So, hi Brian, thanks for watching. Just I'm just shooting shit about the DNC. Um, one of the other people who often comment on the Breakfast Club videos as it's going is Phoenix Writer, and she has been leaving me comments like she's gloating about the DNC and that I should suck it up as a progressive who was wanting Bernie for president. Look at my rainbow colored Bernie for president shirt. All right, I'm still gonna wear it even though the DNC just nominated Biden. Fucking Bernie. All right. Anyways, um, I also wear my Steelers shirts even after they did not win the Super Bowl or even make the playoffs sometimes. So right after the John Lewis tribute in Night 4, they had John Legend and Common singing this song called Glory. I do recommend you put it on your music playlist. Uh, yeah. Brian, I think you should put it on your radio show if you can. It's John Legend and Common singing Glory. Um, then there was Deb Haaland from New Mexico. Um, I recognize her from living in Colorado. Sometimes we see news spots about her, but she was talking about climate change and all that. And then there was this montage about of people saying that they've enjoyed voting through their whole life and like their stories about the first time they voted and stuff. And you know, energizing the vote, I think, is something that they need to concentrate on, and at least every night they put that message out there, like, we have the numbers, we just have to show that we have the numbers by voting. You know, I think that was a good thing to put in there. And then there was this girl that I recognized from my TikTok feed. She was mocking Trump, talking about the post office. By it was actually Trump's voice, and she was just like putting her facial gestures to it. And I've seen her on my TikTok feed. I don't know who she is, but that's it was just her making fun of him. Uh, yeah, what's going on? Yeah, we're doing dog Tetris. Give me a second. I'm gonna let the dog back in the other room because they're switching dogs around. We got dogs that will fight right now. They're pissed off at each other. Door shut. That's done. Um, Live. It's my life. Um, so then there was a bunch of arguments for voting by mail during the pandemic and how Trump's trying to ruin the post office during a pandemic when people want to vote by mail. So yeah, I think they've done enough arguing that Trump is evil, Trump bad. I get it. Like I beyond get it. Um, then Cory Booker talked for a while, and then there was this segment called "You Built America," where Biden was talking to like someone from each of these professions, and the last one was a journeyman wireman from IBEW, which is the union I used to belong to when I was an electrician, and so that connected to me. But also, I thought it was weird that it started with an auto worker, then a firefighter, and a bus driver, and then a wireman, because the auto worker out of all of those, like I don't know if you realize this, but the other unions for all the other trades, whenever they get shit about how union workers are lazy and stuff, they put it off on the auto workers for giving off that sort of not deserving the amount of pay that they get for a menial job that's repetitive. You know, wiremen have to do like crazy wire pulls, and it's a lot of exercise, and they earn their money, right? But because of the standard of living that the auto workers had, and like the cost of living of the area, in the on the East Coast and in Detroit and all that, and just they're lobbying for their own pay very well. People started to get a little bit jealous, and so they look at all of the unions for all of the trades, and they think that they're all overpaid. But really, no, it was just kind of the auto workers, have like they went a bit overboard with their demands, and they give the rest of them a bad name. So like to see it start with an auto worker and then end with an IBEW Germany wireman that I was highly uh, respecting, just seeing him up there. Like I was like, wow, what a contrast. If they only knew like the real breakdown of the feelings. Um, yeah, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be that like we would lower the auto workers' pay though. We would just raise everybody else's up to them. So it's like, although we have envy of them and we think that it went a little bit overboard, it's like, well, no, really, uh, corporations are making profits hand over fist when you know worker pay is stagnant, and we're fighting amongst each other when we shouldn't hate on people for getting theirs. We should try to get our own. You know, so that's what I'll say about that. Um, then there was this segment that was all about the military, right? And it was this Vietnam, no, sorry, it was a Korean War vet. I think his name was Ed Good. And then there was like this other Republican. Also, they were voting for Biden, and what I felt in the middle of watching that was They're saying I used to be Republican and now I'm voting for Biden. They are using this tactic called the first follower. Just go ahead and Google the first follower here on YouTube. You'll see a really famous video on it. It's got millions of views. But basically, if you see somebody else making the jump first, then you're more likely to make that jump and follow. So you need that first follower. So they're giving examples of this first follower in case you don't have anyone in your own life that used to be Republican or used to vote for Trump and now he's going to vote the other way. Here's one for you. If you got that inkling and you're on the fence, well, here's an example of someone who's thinking just the same as you, and he's already doing it. Now all you have to do is follow, and you're not alone, right? Being alone is a horrible psychological pain that people don't want to have. Uh, Brian, you want to know if a wireman is the same as a linesman? They're in the same union, but an inside wireman is different than an outside wireman, which would be the equivalent of the linesmen who actually keep up the power lines outside. An inside wireman, they do everything on the building side of the wiring things. So that's what I think we had on the show, if I'm correct. Um, I don't think it was the lineman that you're thinking about, but same union though. Anyways, after the military family segment where they're talking about how like it's not just the soldier that's affected, it's the whole family that gets deployed. Um, they had a segment with Tammy Duckworth, the vet with her legs blown off, uh, senator from Illinois, and she had some zingers, some really good zingers about Donald Trump. Very edgy. And then there was a tribute to Beau Biden, who was apparently the most accomplished person ever known by the age of like 45, 46, before he got cancer and died. Like he was, uh, a very accomplished soldier, but also uh, an attorney general, state attorney general. And it was like this guy was doing everything. He's if he were still alive, he probably would have surpassed his father in achievements. And so Joe Biden's son died of cancer, and then sent Joe Biden on this crusade against cancer. But yeah, the whole Beau Biden story is it's amazing how much this guy did. He had a lot of get it done in him. Um, then Julie Louis-Dreyfus, the host, she talked about how she herself had cancer and that she caught a call from Joe Biden um, about her cancer. And I'm like, one more person has Joe Biden's phone number. Like, how many people have Joe Biden's phone number? I should rename this video. How many people have Joe Biden's fucking phone number? Um, then there was Pete Buttigieg talked about how uh, well he talked about his same-sex marriage and how when he was born it was not a possibility, but now it is. Then there was this guy, Braden Harrington. He's a little kid, and he's a stutterer. And so he met Joe Biden, and guess what happened? Joe Biden gave him his phone number, which is like the answer to everything. Just talk to Joe Biden on the phone every day. I don't like Joe Biden has a lot of talking that he does, you know. But anyways, Joe Biden himself was a stutterer, it still is, and worked on it. And he was helping this kid by giving him poetry books to practice on, and then there was this segment from Rabbi Michaels. Then there was Stephen Curry and his wife and their kids. I'm like, well, okay, basketball. It's now taken over by Black Lives Matter messages all over the NBA, right? and because of the intersectionality of that, bringing these basketball stars um, into the Democratic National Convention is important, I think, because the other convention, when I'm watching the Republican convention, when it actually happens, I don't think they're going to have any sports stars. Trump versus the NFL, it was a big deal the last 3.5 years, and maybe they'll get Tom Brady, but then Tom Brady's going to sell a lot less T-shirts. Um, then there was Joe Biden's two remaining kids. They talked. Also, they brought up that Joe Biden gives away his phone number all the time. Um, then there was this montage of Joe Biden's childhood, uh, about how he had, but it was like interspersed with like back and forth through time. It was like his childhood, but also this time that he had to get 3 Republican votes. And I was like, this is nice storytelling for like a movie like Memento. And then there was this one little segment in that actually stood out to me, but I don't know if it stood out to everyone else. Joe Biden was a lifeguard at a swimming pool where black people were allowed to swim. I don't know that it was completely segregated, but he was a lifeguard, and his pool was okay for black people to swim in it. Way back in the day when he was a kid. So he was like the white guy watching over black people swimming. It was in the video clips, and I'm like, well, that doesn't kind of line up with the way that Republicans are trying to say that he's been a lifelong racist. They took a lot of quotes out of context with him, and they've got like a little 1 minute clip they like to pass around on Twitter. But really, him being a racist is kind of it's incongruous with a lot of his other achievements and his life story. But wow, Brian, you're commenting a lot. Terrence Hypnonipple, you're in the chat too. Um, yeah, Brian, there's a distrust of experts in the Republican Party. When I watch that and cover that, I think that we'll see that come out a little bit more. Um, the amount of mask wearing in the DNC was, I think, a sign that they're actually the word science, and that Joe Biden is on the side of science. The word science was spoken at least 10 times throughout the night. But Brian says, I'll shush. Um, so then Joe Biden had his speech, and I was listening in particular to his speech. I know that I was, a Bernie fan, and not, wanting Joe Biden to win in the end. That wasn't my motivation for doing this, but I listened intently to see if Joe Biden had any signs of uh, declining mental health during his speech, right? Because they haven't been putting him out in front of people a lot. And although there were signs of his stutter or him slurring a couple words together, I think that there wasn't much to show. But there was one instance where instead of saying, there's nothing that America is unable to do, there was an instance where he said, there's nothing America's able to do. And it was his mouth, the way that it just like slurred that word. And if you look at the transcript that they sent to CNN beforehand, like before he even said his speech, they sent a transcript to it, and the transcript on CNN says, "As presented to us." If you compare that transcript to what he's saying, you can see that he was trying to say unable. And I was like, watch the Republicans jump on this, right? Later on that night, last night, I'm flipping through TikTok on the toilet, and immediately somebody on TikTok Republican talk. They they grabbed onto that one little thing. They're like, "Oh, he's a fucking idiot," right? I'm like, just because he can't make it through a speech without stuttering, does not mean that he's an idiot. He's actually on the side of science. It's actually in his speech. But um, I was listening the whole time, and I felt better that he actually got to the end of that long speech with how few places that he actually tripped over his own tongue. And that could be just him working on his stuttering with all of his practice, but also I think maybe there's just not that mental decline that I was looking for. You know, um, the night I think it was 2 nights earlier on night two when he it was when his wife spoke. She had her speech. He comes out and he says, what a wonderful lady, lady, lady. He said the word lady like 3 times, right? And it was weird the way that he stuttered. He repeated the word 3 times, and you couldn't tell if it was a stutter or him just like really emphasizing that she is a lady. Um, yeah, and Brian says to be fair for Cafefe, to prepare. Yeah, Cafefe happened. So he like at least Biden's not tweeting out his stutter. But yeah, it's basically we've got a battle of the old people that we're getting primed for with this debate that's going to happen, and it's like going to be our old person versus your old person. Let's see who has the most flubs. Um, after the speech, Joe Biden and his wife again symbolically put on masks. They go outside and they walk down the hall with their masks on. They go outside of the Chase Arena that they were at, and there's this fireworks display, and there's a social distanced crowd in their cars in the parking lot. They're all Biden fans waiting for the fireworks show, and they're all wearing masks, right? And so, like, the masks thing is now like symbolic. It's we are going to make a show of wearing masks and social distancing. What is Trump going to do instead? And so, like, I really feel like this is a good move by the DNC to align themselves with science, with health, and with proper practices, right? I think, Trump is basically going to bet on I'm going to align myself with strength and show that I'm stronger than those pussies who are doing all that stuff. In the face of, by the time he has his big speech, there'll probably be 185,000 dead by then in America. And by the time the election happens, there's at least going to be 200,000 dead for people to be thinking about. Maybe 250,000. Depends on if we have a spike. Um, there was a lot of honking in the parking lot, and there was some surprising music that I don't think that Joe Biden would have picked out. It was good stuff for me, but and the people watching, but he's from a different era. I'm pretty sure he didn't pick that music. It was a little distorted guitar heavy and a little bit too much rap for what I would picture would be his taste. I don't mean to be ageist, but anyways, then they had some prayers. Right, it was the end of the DNC, so they had to close it with prayer. So that first they had Rabbi Lauren Birkin doing the conclusion prayer. Then they had another prayer from Father Jim Martin, and that's appropriate because Joe Biden's Catholic. And then they had another prayer from Imam Doctor Al-Hajj Talib Abdur Rashid. And if there's more to his name, it must have like fallen off the edge of the screen because it was a really fucking long name. Um, but he was the imam from New York uh, for his sect of Islam. And then there was this closing speech by Benny Thompson, the actual DNC chairman. Uh, and then there was Andy Cohen's official after party, which I've gone to assemblies, you know, uh, county, uh, congressional, judicial, and state as a delegate. And after the convention, there is an after party. You meet up with your other friends that are delegates, and then you like say, okay, well, let's go to Chili's. Let's go to this the Saltgrass Steakhouse. Let's go, somewhere, and just have fun and talk. And then, yeah, it's uh, it's not the same. So I looked at Andy Cohen's official after party. It was like the last hour of it, and I was like, I don't want to do this because it's just reminding me that we're in a pandemic that was made worse by our inept president, and here I am about to go see my niece and nephew for probably the last time until the end of the school year or until we get a vaccine. I'm about to go see them because their school year is going to start. And I don't want to see them after they've been around their entire school. So the only on the TikTok account of USA Today, there was a little kid. They had this clip where this little kid was crying about the coronavirus because the kid was like 4, and the kid was like, "The only thing that's open is nothing." I was like, "That's how I feel." That kid caught that feeling pretty well, and that's how I feel about Andy Cohen's official after party, social distanced on Zoom. Fuck that shit. I want some in person after parties. When I go to the DNC 1 year, when I make it as a delegate all the way and get past just the state level, when I do make it there, I want a real fucking after party. I don't want any fucking social distance Zoom bullshit. I do that for a living right now. I don't want to talk to people through this this medium anymore. When I'm gonna miss out on birthday parties and Christmas presents being opened and all sorts of shit, you know, you figure you wait in your life until those moments where you're gonna go on this nice vacation, and then some shit like this happens, and then you try to have that vacation, and then it's all social distance. Fucking spoils the shit out of it. Fucking pissed. You know, I don't even think that Biden had to have any sort of platform. He has plenty of platform, right? They were putting it out there in the convention the whole time, like all the different issues. The agenda's on the fucking website, right? He didn't have to have anything. I think Trump's probably just going to lose because we're all fucking frustrated because of coronavirus. That's it. And the real decision about who was going to be president was actually between Bernie and Biden. And if you wanted any sort of choice whatsoever, that was your moment to have it. And it's over. And yeah, I'm expecting Biden. You know, we'll see what happens in the Republican convention, because you know, I see that having a good chance of imploding itself. Um, by the way, bonus news: Steve Bannon was arrested and charged with fraud, so he won't be speaking at the RNC. Cheers. Um, it's strange. Donald Trump ran on draining the swamp when in reality, uh, he just installed a new swamp. And when he's gone, we're still going to be arresting people for years based on all the fraud that happened around his administration. Thank you for showing up, Brian. Um, Brian, I'm going to go give Jeff a birthday present and see my niece and nephew for the last time for probably the rest of the school year. So I'm off to do that, and I'll see you guys probably again by the end of this week. I'll probably put up another stream, something a little more fun.